Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you all this evening. My name is Emre Çelik. I preside over the Rumi Forum, an organization dedicated to increasing social harmony and inclusion by way of projects revolving themes of interfaith and intercultural dialogue. I welcome you all on behalf of the Rumi Forum. We are in the month of Ramadan, which is a very festive and important month for Muslims. It is during this month that Muslims observe the fast. There are very important themes for the observant Muslim during the month of Ramadan, from personal spiritual development to worship to sacrifice, empathy, charity, and what have you. Outside the sphere of the personal comes the social realm, and that is, of course, the sharing of a meal, the breaking of the fast, the breaking of bread together with one's family, colleagues, neighbors, and friends. And that is what we, as part of our mission at the Rumi Forum, encourages, and that's what we're doing today. The Rumi Forum has organized, of the 30 evenings, the 30 days, we have 20 organized Iftar dinners. So you're at one of them this evening, and I thank you for your attendance. We have a small clip that will introduce the Rumi Forum to you. Thereafter, we will grab our food, and during dinner, we're going to have some distinguished speakers say a few words. So again, on behalf of the Rumi Forum, please enjoy it this evening. It is a pleasure to host you, and hopefully there'll be means both this evening and on future occasions to get to know each and every one of you better. So again, thank you and welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, if I can have your attention for a few moments while you're enjoying your meal. I'm going to call upon some distinguished guests to say a few words on this occasion. Of course, you will be able to return to your conversations in a few moments. I want to call upon David Koranyi. He's the Deputy Director for the Eurasia Center at the Atlantic Council. Thank you, David.
Is it the right place for me to stand?
Yes, yes. Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. President Emre. Thank you for being such a splendid host tonight. Thank you for the wonderful food. And thank you for this generous request to address such a distinguished audience tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I plan to be short because I thought that I will speak before the dinner. Now the pressure is off, so, but I promise that I will be not very long. I actually plan to speak shortly about an aspect of interfaith dialogue and intercultural dialogue, which is close to my heart and which speaks to actually who I am. I happen to come from a small Central European country called Hungary, and that country actually has perhaps the saddest national anthem and perhaps the most pessimistic people on the face of the earth. You may have heard the national anthem during the Olympics. We already won 2 gold medals. So sometimes we can be optimistic, but that kind of pessimism, that kind of approach is owed in no small part to the country's battered history of political, national, ethnic, and religious intolerance, and centuries of social injustice. We have actually been, now that we are closing in on the US elections, we have actually been a real battleground state in the middle of Europe for centuries. 23 years ago, it was a unique opportunity after the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union. we finally ended up on the right side of history, only to be confronted with a new wave of challenges recently. Challenges to democracy, challenges to social peace in the wake of the current economic crisis. A vicious circle is being formed in front of our very eyes as we speak, where rising inequality due to the economic crisis breeds disenchantment and hatred. Populism then moves in and fills this political space, dwelling on ignorance. Leaders weaken, and this is actually what is happening, institutional checks and balances, and then fail in the leadership. But that because the institutions are not there anymore, the sustained bad governments then leads to instability and yet more inequality. And a weakened sense of solidarity is both the precondition and the outcome of this process. Intolerance thrives both within and outside the borders. I'm still speaking about Hungary. And nationalism and conflicts ensue. And this is not a scenario from the early 30s, but this is a scenario of today. Sadly, this is not just about Hungary, but also we might see this as a cautionary tale emerging in other countries, in Europe and in other Europe and beyond. And that actually raises the specter of something we thought we left behind forever. I still couldn't conceive that tragedies on the scale of the 20th century are fathomable today. But then a wise friend of mine, who I talk to quite regularly, never ceased to remind me that history is full of so-called momentary lapses of reason, and that causes and leads to senseless human suffering again and again. So I'm therefore a firm advocate that faith has a crucial role in breaking this vicious circle I just described. I also strongly believe that faith could come in a different form and different tastes and different shapes, and yet stand united in realizing its potential for good. There is actually a favorite book of mine, and the title is Belief or Non-Belief. I wonder if you have heard of it. In 1995, actually, in the Milan newspaper called the Corriere della Sera, the newspaper ran a series of articles, letters in fact, published by two leading intellectuals, two leading Italians, one being Umberto Eco, who is a notoriously secularist and atheist writer, and Carlo Maria Martini, who is a long-standing friend of Eco, and who happens to be a Catholic cardinal in Milan. And all these letters were later compiled and published in a book in 1997. And the purpose of this whole exchange of letters and then the publishing of the book was to mutually explore values and norms in a modern world, contentious issues, deliberately contentious issues between believers and non-believers, and very often indeed between believers within one faith. And what is fantastic about this book, and why I truly like this, is that this amicable conversation which comes out of this exchange, it's where you would expect animosity and distrust between two so fundamentally different persons. It actually, the letters are full of warmth, and they are full of curiosity, and they are full of respect. And Martini and Eco actually conclude in agreeing on, and I quote, the notions of universal hope, grounded in simple humanity, and proven every day by the practice of countless believers and non-believers, and that positive reflection arises only from the notion of a spiritual end, one that implies an ultimate declaration in value, illuminating our endeavors in the present and in doing them with significance. And the conclusion of Eco is that in the conflicts of faith, kindness and prudence shall prevail. And I know that this conclusion is something you and your organizations all attest, and this approach is something you all attest every day. The great economist Jeffrey Sachs, who I think is supposed to get a Nobel Prize quite soon, once said that the world's greatest shortage is not of oil, not of clean water, not of food, but of moral leadership. And that is why these pockets, of moral leadership, your organizations you represent, are so important. You actually give us hope that human solidarity and the sense of community can be awakened on all levels, from global to local, and that all people of all faiths can live in peace and harmony. So just to conclude, we are at the Atlantic Council and its Eurasia Center are humbled by your dedication, humbled by your work towards these shared ideals and goals. Thank you very much.
I'd like to now call upon Professor Lefebure from the Department of Theology at Georgetown University to say a few words.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. The sun rises, the sun sets. The sun rises, the sun sets. Rhythms set up routines. We eat and drink. Little by little, we can get so used to routines that we take them for granted. We can get so used to the quest for food and drink that becomes central in our lives. And so when Muslims arrest the usual routine and fast from sunup to sundown, that exerts a call to attention to all of us, not only to Muslims, but for me as a Catholic, for followers of other religious paths. And I think there's something very important here that's worth attending to. At the core of the Islamic faith is the affirmation that God is the only reality we should worship. And that challenges me. It's directly out of the prophetic heritage of ancient Israel. And it calls me to stop and think, what do I worship functionally in my life? What do I make my God in ways that detract from the one true God? In fasting, Muslims both give honor to God. They recall the events that led to the Quran. They celebrate the Night of Power, which took place on some evening during this month. And they also extend concern for others. The Second Vatican Council, the leaders of the Catholic Church expressed their respect for the Islamic tradition, and they singled out 3 practices of Muslims that resonate very deeply with the Catholic tradition: prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And I like to think of those 3 together. We pray towards God, both Muslims, Catholics, followers of many, many other religious paths as well. We fast both in relationship to God and also in relationship to the needs of those who do not have enough to eat and drink, another theme that unites Muslims and Catholics. In the opening of the document on the Church's relation to other religions, the fathers of the Second Vatican Council said something that seems rather shocking. It seems completely counterfactual. They say there is one community among nations, among peoples. And they're writing in 1965. It's the height of the Cold War. The council had opened at the very time that Pope John the 23rd was passing messages between Nikita Khrushchev and John Kennedy with this huge crisis over the missiles in Cuba. They knew the world is rent into many, many different divisions. And yet they proclaim, we are one community. And on the one hand, that's a deep theological affirmation that we share with Muslims and again with many other traditions as well. We have a common origin in God and a common final destination in God. But it's also a challenge. If we are this community in relationship to God, then we should live that way. And so the leaders of the council pleaded with Muslims and Christians alike to forget the animosities of the past and work together. And this is what I've seen in practice with the members of Hizmet, the followers of Fethullah Gulen, around the world in various places where I've been welcomed and hosted. In one situation after another, they're reaching out, looking for what values we share, which are so much more important than the areas on which we differ, seeking to build up the human community. And so I'm delighted and honored to be here this evening. The witness of the Muslim community around the world is a profound challenge to me as a Catholic to reflect upon my own faith and to work in shaping this one community in which we all share.
Thank you, Elio. I'm now going to call upon, and this will conclude the formal aspect, but by all means, after the vote of thanks, please continue to enjoy your meals and conversations. I'd like to now call upon Professor Osama Abu Mashed, the Director for the Center for Contemporary Arab Studies from Georgetown University, to give a vote of thanks to each and every one of you.
Thank you very much, Amri, and thank you all for attending. I didn't prepare any speech, so you can all relax. But as I heard the previous speakers with their moving words, the word community came up several times, and I was reminded of a time when as a child, I asked my grandmother, who was very wise but also had a very advanced sense of the dramatic, what was the significance of the Iftar? And she said words to the effect that the symbolism of the Iftar is for us to always, basically, what she was saying is that if one can remember deprivation in times of plenty, if one can remember lack in times of contentment, if one can remember hardship in times of fulfillment, then one truly does become a member of a community, because that is what makes a community, is the ability not only to share in the good times, but also to care for the other in less fortunate times. And I wanted to thank Emre and the Rumi Forum for allowing us this moment to be, for a moment to be a part of this community and to join together. And also all my thanks also for feeding us, Emre. For me personally, it was a very long day, so thank you very much. And thank you all.